Here. John Carroll.
Here.
Paul Lanza.
Here.
And absent are Anthony Draplick, Ron Perry, and John Leshever. So we do have 4. We do not need to appoint any alternates at this time. Discussion and possible action. A, application number 14-30 of Christopher J. Smith Esquire, applicant, Thomas Evans, owner, petitioning for a text amendment regarding changes to Article 10, Sections G1 and G2 of the zoning regulations of the town of Simsbury. Also, application number 14-31 of Christopher J. Smith Esquire, applicant, Thomas Evans, owner, for a site plan amendment and zone change from Zone I-1 to Zone PAD on the property located at 155 Hot Meadow Street, map F-17, block 201, lot 002A, Zone I-1.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the review board, and town planner pack. For the record, my name is Chris Smith, and I am a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Shipman Goodwin. I appear this evening on behalf of the applicant, Tom Evans, concerning the proposed PAD and 2 text amendments, zone text amendments, concerning property known as 155 Hot Meadow Street here in Simsbury. What I'd like to do is I'll just give you a very brief overview and then turn the floor over, with permission of the chair, to Guy Hesketh, our engineer of F.A. Hesketh and Associates. And Guy will just provide you with a little overview with the buildings being proposed, what's being done to renovate one and with the new structures. And then after that, we'll hear from Dale Cutler concerning the specific architectural items relative to restoring what's known as the old pole barn store structure, which is currently on the property. And then Guy Hesketh will give a little background with some of the design with the new building structure that will be going on the property, or is proposed for the property, and that is a Cumberland Farms gas station with a convenience store. So for the record, I have with me this evening Guy Hesketh. We have Dale Cutler, as well as Tom Evans is here. And with that, I guess I'll just turn it over to Guy, and you can walk through the overview of what's being proposed. I think what's critical in this proposal is Mr. Evans's attempt to retain the old pool barn store as opposed to just taking it down. And I think Dale has spent a lot of time with the architectural design, and he'll walk you through that momentarily. And we've come up with a proposed mixed-use development utilizing the PAD section of the zoning regulations. But to really make it work, the Cumberland Farms component has to go with this, just from a financial sense. Otherwise, to be able to preserve the pool barn store. So I just wanted to preface our presentation with that, and with permission of the chair, I'll turn it over to Guy Hesketh. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay to have this set up here?
Sure.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Guy Hesketh. I'm a licensed professional engineer with F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our corporate offices are located in East Granby, Connecticut, and we helped Tom Evans in the package, the application package, and the plans that you have as part of that package. What I'm showing here on my left is
Could you speak up just a little?
Yeah, what I'm showing here on my left is an aerial photo with the site overlaid on there. You can see the colored portion is the site plan, which I'll show you on a larger scale in a minute. It's located on Hot Meadow Street. It's in the site of the former pool barn, pool and patio barn that was in operation, I don't know, maybe up to 15 years ago or so. And behind it is the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, the rails to trails, so you can see that in relation to our property. So we're sandwiched between a sort of a triangular piece between the trail itself and Hot Meadow Street. I'm showing the Hartford across the street from us. You can see the scale of that, and then the Farmington River is located further to the east of our site. North is not directly, but in upward on the page. So that kind of gives you the scale of our project relative to the neighborhood and where we are in location to that. And I've got a rendering here, a little bit closer scale of the site. It's 155 Hot Meadow Street. It's a total of 1.87 acres. It contains the pole barn building, which is located here. And currently the site is cleared, and there's some gravel parking areas in front of the pool barn and a little bit around the back. There is a drainage swale which runs around the property. It picks up some runoff from Hot Meadow Street, goes between us, and there's a synagogue located here to the south. And kind of circulates around the site along the western edge of it, I guess you'd call it. And that ditch was probably part of the former railroad, and it was incorporated into some storm drainage that the DOT uses to drain runoff from Hot Meadow Street and go around the site. And then, of course, the rails to trails, the Heritage, Farmington Canal Heritage Trails located right here. What we're proposing is to do a restoration of the pool barn building. In addition to that, I have a new convenience store located here, and then a proposed as a canopy for fuel dispensing. The existing pool barn, we're proposing 2,400 square foot of retail with up to 3,320 square feet of commercial, and that would be a combination, Dale will explain that in a minute, of this portion of the building, which will be a mixed use. It could be combination of apartments or some type of studio apartment with some space downstairs, whether commercial, office, retail, artisan type of thing. That will be in the back portion of the building, and the front portion of the building will be reserved for retail, and the upper level would be warehousing. We're going to construct a 4,213 square foot convenience store, which will be located here. Access to the trail we're going to provide in this area here. There's, over that drainage ditch that I talked about, there's a little bridge, a culvert with a bridge in there. We think historically that was used as part of some kind of rail loading operation that may have taken place here historically for that. That's remaining. We're going to take advantage of that and provide some connection between our site and the rails to trails that will allow people that are on the trails to safely access the store for the use of the bathrooms, to buy drinks, snacks for the kids, that kind of thing. The fuel dispensing will take place here under the proposed canopy. We're looking at 4 islands, so a total of 8 dispensers for fuel. Tanks would be located in this area here. And then we'll have access to Hot Meadow Street with 2 driveways. The existing driveway for the pool barn is actually located here, so there's no change. We're adding another driveway here. That's conventionally what's done for this type of use. What this does is it allows circulation for the trucks that are coming in for the fuel filling, and any of the other trucks that are coming in for loading for the products and things that are sold in the convenience store. Also allows for smaller trucks to come in and access the other end, the UPS trucks, and smaller trucks to access the restored pool barn. The tanks and the piping that we're proposing are tertiary containment. What that means is that the tank is a triple line tank. All the piping that's used in the tank is triple line. There's monitoring equipment that is utilized to monitor the interstice between the piping in case there's any intrusion of groundwater into it, or any product that's released from the primary piping that's picked up. The regulations under Article 10G2 have width restrictions in your zoning regulations, have width restrictions for gas stations that are on the roadways in town, that limit them to a 30-foot width at the property line and 40 feet at the curving. That is incompatible with the DOT's requirements for driveway widths when trucks are required to enter a facility. This being the case here. What the DOT requires is that for safe access for a vehicle to enter a site, that the turning movements can be made such that the turn movement will not encroach into the oncoming traffic or will stay in the extreme right-hand lane. What we've provided on our plans are radii that are acceptable to that. One of the things that council will talk about that we're requesting in our application is that the minimum width be allowed to exceed the 30 foot at the property line and the 40 foot at the curb line in order to accommodate the radii transition, which are required between the driveway curb line, which is this line here, and the curb line on the state highway. And we would leave that because this is a state highway, these applications will require review by the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and it's at their discretion from a public safety perspective of what radii they want for that. So we're asking to allow the transition for the radii. We're requesting up to 60 feet on our plan. We're showing widths that are 35 and 45 feet, which we believe are adequate for the DOT. However, this gets flushed out in the encroachment permit process that you have with the DOT. Unfortunately, they won't do a review until there's action taken by the town. Once that's done, we will submit those to the DOT. We are proposing paved parking areas on the site. You can see shaded in gray. There's also a couple other little amenities that we have here. Cumberland Farms has in this location an air dispenser. They're required when they sell fuel and have this type of service that they must provide air for tires, so they're going to have a small box that's located at the edge of the parking area and a crosshatch area that will allow the patrons to come in free of charge and utilize the air if they need to get air in their tires. We also are providing here, and we're showing them on the plan at this location here, are some electric recharge stations for electric vehicles. We're showing them on this plan here. We think that in reality they're going to be located somewhere on the site, but for purposes of showing that we're committed to having electric recharge stations, we are showing a location on the plans. Again, that's something that a lot of towns are starting to lean towards. It's not required specifically by your regulations, but it is a best management practice, and the applicant is desiring to do what's right for the long-term future. Stormwater management facilities on our site. We do have a number of catch basins that are located that pick up runoff and will capture the runoff in an area we're calling our water quality basin, which is located behind the facility. It's shown in more detail on your grading plan as part of your package. What that does is it receives stormwater runoff and then throttles it and discharges it at a reduced rate into the stormwater intermittent water course that's located behind the property. And that is sized to treat and capture and treat the minimum water quality volume. As part of our stormwater management system, we are also locating in an area over here, in another area here, hydrodynamic separators, which are concrete structures that are designed to do two things. They capture and settle total suspended solids to meet the 80% total suspended solid removal requirement or recommendation of the Connecticut DEEP. In addition to that, they have the ability to capture and contain floating product, which would include hydrocarbons from any of the areas of the parking area. So it's designed to handle those type of things. There's a number of erosion control devices that we're proposing as part of the project. I won't get into detail on those unless you have specific questions, but those are shown on the grading and sedimentation erosion control plan, GR1. We also have, in our package, we've included some site lighting, photometric analysis that shows the type of lighting that we're proposing. There's a number of perimeter lighting fixtures that are 14-foot mounting height and a number of pedestrian level lighting at 7-foot mounting height that we're proposing. And then the other lighting that is proposed for site is the canopy lighting. There's a number of lighting fixtures that are under the canopy that are designed to provide lighting immediately under the canopy for better visual for fuel dispensing. Also immediately in the canopy underneath the walkway, the main walkway for the store, and the canopy that's located here, there's some canopy fixtures. Details of those fixtures are provided on the sheet that you have as part of the lighting package. Regarding the landscape architecture, there's a couple things that we're providing. There's a number of evergreen trees and deciduous trees that are located throughout the project, and some flowering fauna and fauna-friendly type of species that are located adjacent to the intermittent water course. We've also are proposing a stone wall feature that's located here in the front of the store. You can see it in the gray here. That integrates in with the freestanding sign that would be located here in the center. And then Mr. Cutler's designed an area here. It's an outdoor patio area. The existing pole barn building extends into this area here. We would be removing a portion of that building. And then the foundation, we anticipate a portion of that foundation would remain, and then there would be garden patio area that would be located here in the front. Don't have exact species of plantings that would be integrated into that at this point, but the perimeter vegetation that we are showing on the plans and the species are again included in your landscape plan. Council, did you want me to touch base on the architecture for Cumberland Farms, or we'll have Dale talk first?
Maybe have Dale address the full barn. If you would,
This is the only way to rescue the farm, like having a gas station next to it. I don't like having the gas station next to the farm. This is the only way to rescue it. That's what I do.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Dale Cutler. I'm a partner in the firm Kenyon and Cutler. Our offices are in Avon. My primary responsibility on this project has been the adaptive reuse of what we all call the pool barn. The structure actually was built in 1911 by American Sumatra Tobacco. And what it was is it was one of their primary warehousing facilities. All the cured tobacco that was grown, a lot of the cured tobacco that was grown in the Simsbury area was brought to this building after it had been cured in the sheds. And in this building is actually made ready for shipment over the rail, obviously the location next to the railroad. The building itself is, because of the nature of it being a warehouse, it's a very, very sturdy building. If you, the interior is, the interior structure is a very, very heavy timber frame. This is actually the first floor plan. You can see the columns are located 10 feet on center. This building will hold like 400 pounds a square foot. It's built like a tank. One of the nice things about it is it's been fairly well preserved over the years. The exterior skin has been kept intact. So, you know, although it's over 100 years old, it hasn't really suffered much from the weather. Part of that is because Mr. Evans has used this for storage for some of his collection, which is a very eclectic collection. But just because of that nature, it's a very secure building, and it's a building that really lends itself to the adaptive reuse that we're anticipating here. As Guy mentioned, the existing building, which we're all familiar with, is about 4 feet from the highway taking line, the front wall of it. That creates all kinds of situations, not the least of which is a very, very bad sightline coming from the north. It really does mask anything, entrance and exit to the site. It does make it kind of an unsafe condition. So the intent of the proposal here is to remove the first 4 bays of the building, or 40 feet, which is from this point to this point. And actually, if you go out there and look at it, it's the portion that has the porch on it now. And so that will help you to imagine how far back it will be set from the road. But also, as Guy mentioned, we're going to retain the existing antique brick foundation that occurs there and create, actually use that as a garden wall. I think that'll be a very nice feature as an adjunct to this. It actually could be an adjunct to some of the uses within the building, or could be used independently, uses related to the bike trail. The use of the building, again, as Guy mentioned, the eastern portion of the front towards Hot Meadow Street, half of the building, is intended to be retail uses, either a single tenant or multi-tenant. We have provided handicap access to that for a ramp and a covered porch out front. The other portion of the building is really a mixed use. It's a combination of commercial office and residential in this half of the building. And on this plan, I think you have copies in your folder. It shows a couple of different ways that could be developed. As we take one of these bays, and the initial thought is that the lower floor will be devoted to either a commercial use, like an office, it could be an artist studio, could be a number of different uses. The upper floor would be, as shown in this, is a one-bedroom apartment. The whole thing would be held in common ownership or common rental. One of the other alternatives, of course, is that we could take that same, that same 20-foot by 40-foot footprint, if you will, and it really does turn into a very, very nice two-bedroom townhouse as 100% residential use. Either of those two uses, whether it be commercial office with residential above, or all residential are, that are adequately supported by the parking shown in the proposal. The first elevation here is from the parking area, or actually from the, I always get this wrong, from the south, looking back at the building. The end of the existing building is here. We're actually moving the end wall back 40 feet. This area right here, underneath the covered porch, is really the retail function of the building. These are again, the mixed residential, commercial office. We've kept the big canopy over this portion, smaller canopies just protecting the entrances to these uses. The porch that is covered at this point could be just an exposed porch, which could connect all these together, providing handicap accessibility to all of the uses within the building. The reconstructed end elevation, it's exactly as it was. We've kind of enhanced some of the window openings. But in general, the window openings that we show in here are pretty much where they are now. They've been enlarged, but they're pretty much where they are. These windows are essentially duplicates of what's there now. They would be contemporary windows with full insulating glass and authentic barred lights, pre-finished. Major materials, there is an existing fiberglass shingle roof that'll be retained as much as possible. The roof over the retail section would be probably a metal roof. I'm showing it here as a dark green metal roof. The general material on the exterior of the building would be horizontal lap siding. More likely than not, it would be fiber cement product, which is kind of what everybody's using these days, just because of the durability, and probably be pre-finished, which gives a nice lifetime warranty on that finish. So I don't know if you have specific questions with regard to the barn design. I'd be very happy to answer them, or we can move on and just kind of show you what the proposal is for the convenience store. Okay.
Why don't you move on, and then we'll ask all our
Okay.
questions at the
Right.
end.
Just to kind of segue into that, we did actually provide, or did have prepared a rendering. This is the new end elevation of the pool barn. This is actually the terrace area that we talked about towards South Meadow Street. That's an accurate representation of the canopy that's being proposed. This is a representation of the convenience store. That gives you a real good idea. It's kind of a replay of this. So that gives you sort of a proposed before and after. A little bit better illustration of the Cumberland Farms, which was not our intent in doing this rendering. Our rendering was trying to show accurately what what it would actually look like. I mean, this is obviously rendered to scale. Kind of shows some of the features the guy was talking about: the low stone wall, the lower profile Cumberland Farms sign. But actually, Cumberland Farms prepared this rendering, which is their prototype, looking from the other side. So that gives you a little bit better rendition of what the actual convenience store looks like and the
That's a prototype, though.
Yeah, it's not just site, right?
Exactly, just want to make sure.
Yeah, got it.
I figured this group would know, but I just want
That's more specific.
Yeah, this is a specific design
Yep.
that they put together. You have the copies of those in your package. Real quickly, I'll go over these, but this would be the front elevation as you're looking at it from Hot Meadow Street. The main entrance would be located here. On your plan, you see sort of a little patio area on the north side. That's depicted here. There'll be some seating, some umbrellas and stuff. And the idea is to make that pedestrian friendly, to provide sort of an interface between the walking path and the store itself. But looking from the sidewalk, what we're looking at is a stone facade to a 3-foot elevation located here. And that would be a color scheme, and that would be brown, gray in color like you see here. That would have a water table just above that, and then the rest of the elevation would be a vinyl clapboard material, 4 inch to the weather, light gray color. Synthetic wood trim would be located for the trim details. The one band here closest to the vinyl siding would be a green color that would, similarly, this would be, as Dale showed on the canopy itself, you'd have that same color scheme that would be on the canopy. And then you'd have gutters and downspouts on the building would be white. You'd have some additional trim, which would be a gray material up to the roof line itself. And then there's two kind of details for the roof. There's that small band of the flatter portion of the roof would be a standing seam metal roof here, and then the rest of the roof itself would be an architectural shingle. Then they're proposing, they took a look at Dale's plan, and instead of the gable type of dormers that you see here, the gable roof dormers, they'd be looking at shed dormers that would match the style that would be proposed for the pool barn building. And then again, there's a gable entrance feature here, which would have some columns that would be located here, provided with 3-dimension in here. And again, their sign would be located in the front facade there with a gooseneck type of lighting that would illuminate it from above. And those would be white fiberglass column sleeves that would be located here as part of that. And again, I mentioned about the sign. The wall that we're showing out front on that other landscape plan, our intention would be to mimic what we see here, so that would have some continuity there. And then again, the freestanding sign, there's a stone treatment that's on the freestanding sign that would again incorporate the same materials that would be utilized as part of the building there. That's it in a nutshell for the Cumberland Farms building.
Great. Well, I'd like to first say, I think it's great that someone's finally doing something with that pool barn building. I'm sure everybody here, I know, drive by it all the time and go, although my vision was this beautiful restaurant right on the end, like farm to table overlooking the tower, like amazing chef restaurant, but that's okay. Retail will work too. Maybe it'll be a good store. So that's good. I have a couple comments about the site plan. If you guys don't mind, I'll go first and then let you guys say them. The water quality basin in the rear, what exactly is that? Is that just like a water holding pond that has a black chain link fence around it?
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned that it's right on the path, right? So you're gonna bike past this 4-inch high black chain link fence, and there's just sitting water in there?
no, it wouldn't be sitting water. Water would be in there only after a storm.
So when there's no water in it, what is it, just like a hole?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is that we did get wetlands approval for the regulated activities associated with this, which would include this particular item that Guy's about to address, which is within the upland review area. Because there's a water course, intermittent water course going
Yeah.
along the southerly side of the property, as Guy indicated, and then traveling on the westerly side in a northerly direction on the westerly side of the property, so.
Yeah, we did get a copy of their report, so we did see their approval and their
Their
concerns and their comments, yep.
Okay, but I'll let Guy respond.
Yeah, well, what it is there's actually a block retaining wall that's located around this. The finished grade elevation in this area is an elevation, 307 or 107. Excuse me, just grab my plans here to verify that. But what it is, it's a 3-foot high, concrete masonry unit, keystone wall type of feature, and then the fence is on top of that. So what it does is it's an area that's depressed above the existing grade to match the elevation of the water course that's behind that.
So what you see, you'll see a 3-foot high block wall with a 4-foot high fence on top.
Yes, so if you're coming from the path, that's what you would notice. And what it is designed, the volume of that is designed to handle the amount of runoff that's coming from the site. Typically, what you try to do is you design a site to handle capture and treatment of 1 inch of runoff over the entire site, and that's sized to do that.
And is
So-
there any other form of fencing we could use there, or something that looks a little nicer than black chain link or block, or, I mean, if we're doing all this to make these nice brick walls and the amount of people on that path,
What
I
did you,
guess-
what did you have in mind for something?
Well, I don't know,
like that?
could you use a white, or not maybe a white, but a wood slat fence or something that's a little more,
Yeah, the thing is, you want to
Keeping-
be able to visually see inside it, so you don't want to create a barricade where you can't see inside it. Because from an operation perspective and a safety
so how do
perspective.
you get in there?
There would be a gate that would allow you access to it. But you need to be able to take a look at it and see in case there's some issues that you need to deal with, that, for maintenance and things
Okay.
of that nature.
Well, my comment would be that maybe there's some other material or something that would be a little more pleasing to the eye.
If when we thought about that when we were doing the design initially, but it's interesting is, it's not much different than the ditch that runs along the entire portion of the railroad here. The ditch is the same elevation. There's about a 4-foot elevation difference. It's fairly steep banks on there, so.
But there's no fence there, right?
correct.
It's all just natural.
It's man-made, it's not
Man-made.
natural, but it was designed as a drainage feature, and when the railroad was built, it was excavated. When the DOT did their work, it was excavated. So it is a man-made feature that runs the length of the property. So the elevation difference that you'd have on top of that bank to what we're looking at is really the same. We're limited to the elevation of discharge, which is the bottom of the.
I guess I'd
Of the
be
ditch
interested in
itself.
seeing an elevation of that rear facade, the back of the building with that fence and what that looks like and what's proposed for the back of the building.
I have an elevation of the back of the building, but I don't have one that shows with the fence itself. Oh, the back of the building itself, by the way, the mechanicals will not be ground mounted, they will be mounted on a shelf, and then they'll be protected by fencing material. But what you'd have is, in this area here is where you would have the water quality basin.
Yeah.
You can envision it in this direction.
And in it, along to the same lines, the dumpster, is that gonna have any fencing around it or be
Yeah, what
shielded?
we're proposing is a vinyl fence material that's opaque that would enclose the entire dumpster area.
So you would not be able to see the dumpster?
That's correct, yeah. And that's not from a safety perspective, it's okay not to see the dumpster, obviously. But yeah, it would be a steel frame and vinyl fence material that would be on that. And that would be closed unless the dumpster obviously was being loaded for disposal. From a safety perspective, you want to be able to see it. You want to be able to do something. For the western.
So who's gonna check the storm drain, this basin? The owner of the Cumberland Farms owner?
Part of the operation of the facility itself, I mean, it'll be looked at after each storm. There's a requirement, we actually have, as one of the conditions of approval for our Conservation Commission in the wetlands, there's a maintenance schedule and stormwater management practices that are followed, and part of that is
Yeah.
subsequent to each storm, there's an inspection done. to take
And
a
those
look
are
at-
electrical boxes on that corner? Or meters?
Yeah, that would be the utility connections in the back.
My only concern with that is that that's where all the people are gonna be coming in off the trail, walking right to the thing. They're gonna be bollards in front of it so that somebody can't go up to it or could it be on the opposite side near the dumpster?
Well, that side would be prohibited because there's a easement located along the edge of that property where the sanitary sewer is, and the utilities actually are coming in on that side. There's currently three-phase electric service at the utility pole that's closest to the north entrance of the project. From a safety perspective, I don't see that being an issue at all.
It's just an eyesore.
Maybe perhaps one of the things that might be possible would be to consider the fencing, sort of a slat fencing along the back, so from the trail that you can't see it, but perhaps the ends of it, in terms of for observational purposes, maybe that could be, whatever it needed to be, but
In this area here?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's-
just thinking that,
I think that'd be
I
fine,
think
because
there's options to.
yeah, because as long as we have
Address it.
visual, as long as we can see it from this side here, I don't think that's an issue.
And I was asking, I'm sorry.
Section perspective.
Yeah, I was asking Guy about that, and Mr. Evans would not have any objection to putting a slotted fence of some sort there to, provide that visual, instead of having a chain link fence or whatever.
And there are a
on the
number of
trail.
shrubs that are also proposed on there too that provide some screening in that area. So yeah, we certainly could enhance that.
the other thing we just recently talked about too, with regard to the pride stations that we did, was the same type of fencing for, on the roof, rather than an open railing, and know that obviously air circulation is important for those things, but still some sort of a fencing there that's a little bit more difficult to see through, some sort of a slat fencing there.
For
Would
where?
be possible too.
For on the roof,
On
to
the
hide the
roof.
mechanicals, you could use the same,
Same type
more
of-
aesthetically appealing slat fencing
Sort
to,
of an opaque fencing on the roof.
same as what you're gonna propose for down below, so they
So
kinda
they kinda run
match
together,
and
yeah.
you can't really see in
Yeah,
from the trail. I think that would help.
sure.
So it looks like it'll go down about this distance anyways, right?
Yeah, this elevation here is only, I think, a foot, or it's 2 feet higher than the top of the berm along the back, so, yeah, the fencing would come to about here, probably. About where? Visual perspective. About 2 foot up above the first floor elevation.
Would be the top of the 4-foot fence.
Yeah. Let me just grab the grading thing in here. The first floor is 180 of the building, the top of the berm is about 179. So it'd be about a foot, 1 foot difference, so 3 foot would be 4 foot fence of the other height.
That's all I have right now. Any you guys have any comments?
I just have one quick question. I certainly don't have any objection to the project, Hiram, this is for you. We once considered impervious cover. Is that covered in either the present zone or the proposed zone change?
The proposed zone change would allow the stormwater to be treated on site to the maximum extent possible. Talked to the town engineer about that as well. We had a number of discussions about whether the basin is the right way to do that, or whether it should be covered over. We put a lot of emphasis in our stormwater regulations recently on low-impact development. Conservation Commission wanted to see the basin, but I think it brings up the same questions that the chairman just raised as to, what's it gonna look like and how's it gonna function. The town engineer is comfortable with the fact that the way the coverage that's shown is able to be treated here. He's
Yeah.
comfortable with that. Whether the basin is aesthetically pleasing or not, trying to dress that area up and to obscure the less attractive aspects of it is really what we're talking about here now. But the coverage does work with the stormwater calculations that have been provided.
That's all for me.
For me,
What, do you wanna go next?
I'll go next, because I have to take a little bit different tack. You're all familiar faces in this room tonight, and I'm sure you realize that this board makes its recommendations basically based on the guidelines for community design. Let me draw your attention to page 11. I'll read it to you. I'll read the opening part of it, because to me this is very important. This is, the title of this is Circulation Vehicular and Pedestrian. Does the site design provide vehicles and pedestrians with a safe, logical approach and entry to all site use areas and buildings? Is equal importance given to the pedestrian as to the vehicle in terms of comfort and access? In looking at the site plan, if I take the center of the site plan, which is basically Cumberland Farms, It is comparable to the Cumberland Farms in Granby and the one in Bloomfield, which I frequent often. They are both extremely busy. The vehicular traffic and pedestrians going back and forth between the store and their vehicles. Fuel delivery vehicles, vehicles that deliver material, food, et cetera, to the convenience store. There's a drive by or drive up window and the Bloomfield unit. We're proposed adding a significant number of additional parking spaces and potentially a significant number of internal traffic, vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. And without a better explanation than just looking at this, I could not be comfortable recommending this as proposed, based on what is said here. I don't want to sound like Scrooge. I think it's a great idea to have the access from the bike path, but it could be extremely dangerous because kids are kids. And kids will come down that path on a bicycle, on a skateboard, on whatever. And you have all these vehicles in here. I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with it. And nor are the guidelines, I think.
If you want to address that, because we have the access here.
Yeah, I can address that. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way that this is designed is parking for two uses, obviously. You've got the convenience store and the fuel dispensers here, and then you've got a component of retail and a component of residential, commercial in the back here.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah, the circulation that you're gonna see for people who are utilizing the convenience store is they're gonna focus on the parking spaces that are located from here forward. Okay, the average stay in a convenience store is typically 10 minutes or 5 minutes in the morning, it's pretty quick. Most people who dispense fuel will actually utilize that as a parking space, and then they'll go in and they'll come back out and they'll leave from that parking space. So it's a high turnover use for a convenience store. We recognize that. That's why we biased all of the parking that would be required as part of this in this direction, in the front of the store. The bulk of the pedestrian traffic will obviously come from the pathway itself. What we provided for here is there are 3 parking spaces here. We anticipate those to be employee parking spaces, so they're not a high turnover space. When the employees for Cumberland Farms were to come here, they would be instructed to park in these spaces here. Employees for these uses would park in this area here, and then if the residences are approved here, then these would be the spaces for the residents. So the spaces that you have in this area here are not a high turnover space. If it's an office where someone comes in, let's say a real estate office or something there, you're not gonna get a high amount of traffic. Somebody might come in for an hour, for half an hour or so, pull in, just like any of the other smaller places that are located around town. But the pedestrian route would be here with the crosswalk, and we're providing for a bike rack in this location here, a bike rack underneath the tree here, with the intent that the people who utilize this would come in, access the store through this doorway here. These are where the bathrooms are located. And their purchases would be made, they would enjoy this area as far as refreshments and things of that nature. So we don't see a conflict from that perspective because we're not encouraging people to come in. For example, I would be more concerned if there was a pedestrian path up here and people were accessing the site, going through the main traffic flow. But the idea being is that the pedestrians and those who are utilizing the path would be utilizing this area of the site. And we provide it for safe access so that they're not involved in crossing traffic. The only crossing traffic they would have would be in the dedicated employee spaces here, which again, 3 spaces.
So is there a way that you could potentially relook at that back layout so that they can get from the path directly to the sidewalk without going into the parking lot at all? I mean, I would think you could push the parking spaces over and come in along the water quality
Yeah, we could
basin and keep the pedestrian path completely out of the parking lot. And
Take a look
that
at
might
that.
address one of John's concerns, that they're not coming off a path into a parking lot, back onto a path, even though they're employee parking.
No, excuse me, but that's not my concern. My concern is kids are kids, okay? And you'll have kids all over the place. all over the place. They will not confine themselves to where you think they will.
Again, it's my opinion.
Have that anywhere, though.
It's my opinion that the plan itself does provide for safe and adequate access to pedestrians.
Well, again, I appreciate your opinion. I have an opinion too.
And I suppose you could make that with kids around the center of town coming here and stuff like that, but again, I think our plan provides, in my opinion, for adequate and protection.
Your plan is very attractive, okay? And people will look at it and say, wow, that's great, we can come down and have a cup of coffee and and the kids can come down and have a soda, and all of that's very
Use
nice.
the restrooms.
The question in my mind is it appropriate, given what goes on the property? That's all.
In my opinion, I think it's
Well,
appropriate.
again, we're not making a recommendation tonight. We're making a recommendation whether this should be a PAD. Is that correct, Hiram?
Actually, both on the agenda, John. Both.
Well, all right. If we're going to vote on the design, then I'll vote the way I intend to vote. That's all.
Anka?
I have a comment too. First of all, I want to commend Mr. Evans for, I'm sure, making a huge effort to preserve the structure. And the whole team put a lot of effort and came up with some good ideas on how the property can be salvaged. Now, having said that, can you please go back a little bit and elaborate? You mentioned in the beginning that only building a gas station on the property will financially save it. What was the reasoning behind having a gas station built here, and did you consider any other options?
Tom, I don't know if you want to get up and specifically address how long you've had this property on the market and has been trying to do something with it, but he needs to generate a cash flow that will support doing what's being proposed for the pole barn store. And a gas station convenience store will generate that necessary cash flow. It's been on the market for quite a number of years.
It's been on the market just under 5 years.
And nothing.
It's been on CERC, CoStar, it's been on the national commercial websites, and I haven't had, the office market in Simsbury is pretty dead right now. If you talk to any of the commercial brokers, well, you don't even need to, you can drive by Weetag, and there's a for lease sign in front of just about every office building. So the office space is not a good market. The building has had not much done to it over the last 100 years, other than kind of putting petition walls in, but not, I mean, there's still old knob and tube wiring in there. There's still plumbing in there from 100 years ago. So it needs a lot of work to bring it up to what it would need to restore it. It's almost more cost prohibitive to take it down. When you restore an old building, I can build a building like across the street next to Dunkin' Donuts for about $135 a square foot. To restore the pool barn, it's probably going to cost me $165. And so it's you can talk to Dale, Kenny, and Cutler, but to save the barn, it's a beautiful structure. And if it wasn't so beautiful and it wasn't so strong, if you go in there, you'd see it. It's got 12 by 12 beams, and it's amazing.
Is it on the historic register, or is it historically documented? No, so it's not.
It was during the turn of the century. It was built by American Sumatra. They were one of the top 5 taxpayers in the town, and they were just behind Ensign and Bickford. So it's a pretty amazing building. So if I can find it.
That's why I totally understand. I agree with you, and I'm totally for preserving it.
I tried when I tried marketing the property for the first 3 or 4 years, before I came to the zoning commission a couple of years ago, and tried to market it. I called every bank, I called every restaurant, it cost me.
Said the restaurant would be a
My next
perfect
career.
Tried
location there.
Max's, tried Grant Brothers, there's just not that kind of a dense population. With the Hartford leaving, a lot of people are very scared of the area, of what's going to happen to the Hartford property, and what's going to happen to the area. So, I knew a gas station wasn't going to be looked upon the best way. And that's why, before I did it, I came and tried to ask for an opinion from the zoning commission, and even the design review board. I came here a couple of years ago and talked to the board. I tried, like I said, the property has uses that are functional. It's grandfathered used car, it's got a used car license that runs with it, for used car sales and storage. It has a machine shop. I can open up a machine shop and do heavy machine. It's got retail. There's even a 65-car parking space for retail use that was a variance that was granted back in the 70s. That's on record. So this, I don't know how big this is. I think it's 70-something spaces. But so, because when I used to have the old bar across the street that I tore down, it used to be the Deuce back in the day. They used to use the overflow parking on this lot. They got a variance approved for it back in the 70s. So right across from Lou's Package Store, which is across the street. So, so it's the use. After I went in front of the zoning commission, I started looking for a user. Cumberland Farms was the only one I found willing to come to Simsbury. It's not a very dense area as far as like most of these oil companies. They're like 44. They like bigger volumes. Cumberland Farms targets the community. They're like a community location. So,
And it's zoned industrial. Currently, it's zoned industrial. It was used for light manufacturing. They assembled guns there at one point in time. It's actually a rather neat building. Being active with the Planners Association and going on all the national conferences, it's and seeing what's been done with some buildings. I mean, what Tom is proposing to do with this one. I mean, this is like it's like being in a football field and just looking from one end to the other. It's just pretty neat, and to be able to divide it up like this, as Dale's proposing, it just will work.
The question here, first of all, I attended the informal presentation that you folks made, and if you recall, we had the same type of reservations, not so much the safety part, but and at that time the gas station operator wasn't identified. All right, okay, but if you recall, what we said about the gas station per se was basically it was okay. I mean, the architecture was okay, and it was, as a gas station, pretty good. We had concerns about the use of how the gas station would affect the use of the building of the barn, and how the use of the barn would affect the gas station. I tried to get the minutes today of that meeting, so I'm taking this from a very vague memory. I don't have any objection to the gas station, right? I don't have any objection to preserving the building. My concern here is, as proposed, you have traffic issues on the property that I think are very difficult and are potentially dangerous. That's all.
I hired the traffic engineers guy, and they looked at it, and they looked at the flow, and they tried to come up. This has been going on 2 years. They tried to come up. I can't tell you how many plans I've done. I have a stack that, and this is not. This is one of many layouts. We tried turning the building, turning the pumps, turning this. Every time we had a suggestion, we tried it. This seems to be. There's purposes why the building's laid out the way it is. The town of Simsbury has a sewer easement on the 30 feet to the left of this property, which prohibits the building from going that way. You can't, between all the critiquing, this is the best scenario we came up with. The stores, as far as the stores at that meeting, as I told you, when I tried to lease the yellow building next to the Dunkin' Donuts, I got a lot of people when I built that were looking for inexpensive rentals, 800 square foot, 500 square foot, 700 square foot, and that's what gave me the idea to do this to the barn a couple of years ago, because over the years, the last 5 years, I've gotten no calls to lease. I got one indoor flea market that wanted to lease it for the weekends I didn't want to do that. But I can divide this barn up into 800 square foot affordable spaces, sort of like what Simsbury does down there, where you can get somebody that does, like the Stones and Strongs was over in Avon Village for the past 20 years, and little stores like that, I think you can get, that are sort of local artsy craftsy kind of stores, which is what I said before. The floor on the end where they added the apartments on the second floor, that was an idea of the engineers and the architects and everything else to do that. I still think it works with I got calls from people that have homes at the shore, they're retiring, they have insurance agencies, they still want to keep an office up here, looking for, I even own the one behind the Civil War statue at 343, the old Holbrook house they just finished renovating in the center of Weetag. And I get calls from people on that for the same purpose, that they're looking for a place to do a little office and maybe live and sell their big home up here and then move to the shore or whatever. So I think those spaces, the live workspaces, can work too. If somebody wanted to do an insurance agency downstairs and have an apartment upstairs, or an art studio downstairs and have an apartment upstairs, I think those spaces work too. I think enough of making them work that this project to renovate the barn is probably about $1 million. So to build the Cumberland Farms is about $2 million. So it's a project that it's not a cheap thing that you're going to go in there and, when I do something, I try to do it the right way. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make something that, when we're long gone, that is still going to be there and be nice. So.
And I think as Guy Hesketh indicated, there wasn't, there's a conscious effort to try to have the parking segregated where the uses are. And I know Guy's expertise in that area, that is his opinion, and just respectfully submitting to you this evening that with the design being proposed, that it will be safe. And the last thing Tom, and certainly Cumberland Farms, would want to get involved with would be an unsafe condition relative to the use, or uses, plural. But understand and appreciate your opinion. You certainly are entitled to it. I understand that. But a lot of thought has gone into designing it this way, just to address that particular issue, because Cumberland Farms doesn't want to have to deal with any potential
not.
problem like that.
Well,
All right,
so be
well,
it.
do we have any other comments architecturally? I guess the process for tonight, Hiram, would be to, I guess we would, look for a motion that this, conforms to our guidelines with a few comments that were made, one being that the rear pedestrian bike path be relooked at and taken out of the parking lot. Two, that the water quality basin, design of the fencing, and appearance of the entire back elevation be further reviewed and studied to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the people on the site path. Does anybody else have any other comments?
Just the fence on the roof,
And the fence on the roof should, in my opinion, at least match the fence that's around the water quality basin. And then in regards to the zone change and the other things, that would be zoning commission's responsibility to make that recommendation. We are just making a referral or recommendation that this design meets our design criteria.
The perfect project hasn't been built yet, and it's an imaginative way of handling an unusual situation and taking care of an eyesore with that building. In my last life, I renovated a similar building over in Terriffill into condominiums. It's amazing structures. I'm wholeheartedly in favor of it, the zone change and the project in general.
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion for approval based on the comments I listed before, and that the approval for the zone changes goes to zoning to handle, we're not making an approval or referral on that, or recommendation on that. Yes?
Good.
You'll make that motion?
Yeah. Let her read it out.
What shall I do? What shall I say? What's the wording for it? Make a
Where's your little
motion,
form?
second the motion.
What do you want me to just reread this?
It's an awkward situation.
Yes, you make the
know?
motion and I
Make a
can
motion
second
that
it.
application 1430 of Christopher Smith Esquire, applicant Thomas Evans, owner, petitioning for a text amendment regarding changes to Article 10, Section G1 and G2 of the zoning regulations of the town of Simsbury, and the application number 14-31 of Christopher J. Smith Esquire, applicant Thomas Evans, owner, for a site plan amendment and zone change from Zone I-1 to Zone PAD on property located at 155 Hot Meadow Street, map F-17, Block 201, Lot 002A, Zone I-1 be approved.
Okay, second?
I second the motion.
I'll go second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Nay. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Motion, I believe, passes.
Dr. Bull.
Right?
I totally commend you for trying to preserve the barn. But you know what, I'm afraid that the gas
We
station,
have one other presenter
with all the
before we leave, or
traffic, all the
we-
commotion, will scare away, will.
Hey, Tom,
Need to
was that
approve
your,
our minutes,
was it
too.
your dad that owned that originally? I used to own the building across the street that was Louis' package store. But, well, I was a partner in the deal, but there were some valuable cars stored over there. Yeah.
No. But you know what, this is, I'm gonna stay, because I think the zoning, there's gonna be a lot of people for and against it, and let
I
them
did the
determine. And then,
the building owner.
we just gotta do the design and let them figure out if this is the right place for us.
down by the
I'm
park.
anxious, that's why I wanna stay, because I'm really curious to see. You should move your office there.
Well, we just have one, we just renovated the barn in
Oh, just come back to Simsbury.
Nobody is going to leave or to work. Right here, John Jacksonville Road, where all the
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure.
But then, I know.
Honestly,
The arch across on Meadow Street, huh?
very nicely designed by Mr. Cutler, overlooking the.
All right, you ready? Next, we have an informal presentation by Christopher Millard of Phase Zero Design of proposed exterior renovations to Mitchell Auto Mall on the property located at 416 Hot Meadow Street, map F14, block 143, lot 003, zone B2.
Evening, thank you. For the record, I'm Matt Whitmer with Phase Zero Design. I'm going to turn the mic over to Christopher Millard from my office as well shortly. I just wanted to very briefly introduce this project to you. Obviously, we're here informally. We appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about this project. One of the things that we're dealing with, and we understand certainly what the design review is charged with and how you operate. We also understand that a lot of work has been done in looking at the village of Weetag and the community that ultimately is intended for that location. As you know, Mitchell Auto Group has been in town for many years, and by the way, Stephen Mitchell is here with me tonight as well to represent the property owner. Has been in the community and certainly been supportive of the community for quite some time. They currently have a franchise with Chrysler Dodge. And they are being asked by Chrysler Corporate to take a look at their facility and look at some potential upgrades. As we see more and more happening in retail, typically what that means is following a prototype or prototype design set Chrysler Corporation has developed. They have asked Mitchell's to take a look at this. As we know, many times auto dealerships, the product of that typically belongs more in a Miracle Mile than it does in a village setting. I have not printed out these documents or given to you, but I show you a little bit about what's being looked at. It's basically an Alucobond-clad building with what they're calling the Millennium Arch, which goes on the front of this building. Our point of coming to you informally tonight is twofold. One, certainly, we have some concerns with presenting something like this in an environment and community such as Weetag. However, nonetheless, it's what's being asked of the client at this point. So informally, we'd like to discuss that a little bit with you, get some feedback from you. We also have another option that I'll have Chris Millard show you as well, which is perhaps in keeping a little more in the architecture. But nonetheless, we appreciate the opportunity to just discuss this with you. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Chris. You can give a quick presentation and talk a little bit more about it.
As Matt said, my name is Chris Millard. What we've brought tonight is kind of two concepts. Matt mentioned the very first one from Mitchell is basically a Alucobond cladding. What we're doing is we're taking this existing building now that has kind of no branding, no prototype. Really does not appear as a Dodge dealership. It really could be any type of building from its appearance from the street. In trying to apply that prototype to it from Chrysler. With the options, we've done two things. The first one, the Alucobond, we're kind of taking this existing soffit or fascia, wrapping it with the metal paneling, and then Chrysler also requires this Millennium Arch, which is part of their prototype. The arch is something that would come prefabricated. There's different manufacturers out there that can build the arch off-site, and it's something that's very simple. It can come in and just set down on the footing. The idea is the arch has different proportions. This building happens to be the smallest arch proportion. There's a lot of arches out there or different proportions where the arches are 30, 40 feet tall, and I believe at this location the arch is only 20 feet tall in relationship to the building. The second option is a little more traditional. We've basically kept the existing fascia that runs along the building, and we're just planning on repainting that. However, the idea is to keep the arch as well on this, but instead of cladding it with the Alucobond, we would clad it in a brick veneer, so it's a little more traditional. We thought that the painting of the existing cedar fascia and the brick-clad arch is a little more traditional, a little more in keeping with Simsbury's design review qualities and characteristics.
And then you just would paint the existing
Yes,
horizontal?
there's a cedar board and batten veneer on there. We would obviously scrape off the existing paint and repaint it. I think as far as the colors, it's something that we can certainly review and discuss. We just kind of thought right now that just a simple buff color would work well for our discussions. Another element to discuss tonight is not only just the building, but also some signage. Right now, you can kind of see in this sign here that there's an existing Dodge sign. Part of this process is so that the franchise can not only just sell Dodge and Chrysler, but they also want to acquire Jeep as part of their franchise to be able to sell new Jeeps. And again, with rolling out another product, that's another reason why they kind of need to upgrade their branding and also upgrade their signage that's on the building. So there is a small monument sign that's part of this. And I'll flip to the next page. This one is basically a floor plan layout. It's all mostly interiors, but the reason why I wanted to show you this is to show you the location of the Millennium Arch. Right now, this square rectangle here is the existing showroom. The Millennium Arch would add a small kind of extension to the front entrance door to the building, which would be right in the archway. So this plan just kind of shows how deep that arch is and how wide it is in relationship to the floor plan. And then the final plan that I have is a site plan. This we created more for a discussion of signage. Right now, there's 3 monument signs as part of this complex. One of the things to note is that the complex is divided kind of by the existing mobile station, which is not part of the property. So right now, Dodge showroom is over here, which this is where we're proposing to replace the monument sign. The other 2 monument signs are existing, and we didn't touch those at all. And then lastly, we did provide a elevation, which is the prototype from Chrysler, their signage and the proposed size.
How tall is the sign for their,
The total height is 10 feet for
right,
the
and that's the
signage.
smallest sign that Chrysler provides?
That's right. And the square footage of the actual sign area, I believe is, based on their specifications that was given to me, is 33.9 square feet.
Is I know the service shop.
Which
the
one?
Volvo, the Volvo
The
shop.
Volvo, right, that's
brick.
over here.
That's brick, correct?
That's correct.
Is the showroom, is the whole showroom brick also?
Yes.
I believe the
This is totally in keeping with,
Yeah.
for the record, I'm Steve Mitchell. And this really is in keeping with the design that exists. We're getting pressure from the manufacturer to have this arch and to have this look, the millennium, it's called the millennium look. Yeah.
I don't object to that. What I'm thinking about here is with your sign, if you use the brick arch and add brick to the base of your sign, it ties the whole group together,
Okay? Yes.
using the brick as opposed to the aluminum. That's what I
I
mean.
agree.
The base,
Yeah, I vote for option 2 as well. I mean, that's my opinion. The brick is more, yeah, and if they'd let you put brick on the base, I think that'd be even better, on the base of the sign.
Yeah, I think this sign is their prototype, so it's really more in matching, I guess, with the first prototype that I was showing you.
Well, this is informal.
And for the record, as of tonight, we are the second auto dealership in the state of Connecticut to go solar. So what you've seen us doing in the past 2 months, 3 months with the panels down there is actually going live tonight. So the first test. So
Great.
we're trying to be progressive, but we're trying to keep in character with Simsbury too.
Allow me to be somewhat blunt, though, just to kind of move
Sure.
things along a little bit. The issue at hand is that the Chrysler dealership, as Stephen has mentioned, is putting pressure on Mitchell's to go in this direction. However, to allow them to move in a different direction, maybe more architecturally pleasing with what's there right now, some form of a motion or feedback from you in some way of memorializing this that can go to Chrysler is actually necessary to allow us to move in a different direction. Otherwise, they will continue to press that the Millennium Arch and the Alucobond, the aluminum, be followed. Is there some means or that the Design Review Board can provide that?
As opposed to you're presenting something that we would have to say doesn't meet our, okay. Let me ask just one or
What's
two
the-
questions. Is there additional signage proposed for the building itself, other than the Mitchell?
Right now, no, it's just, right now there's no signage on the front face of the building.
Okay,
The only signage we're proposing is the Mitchell signage
would be the branding.
over the
All right.
Millennium Arch.
What's the process for that, Hiram?
Yeah, I mean, should the board decide, and I think you've indicated that the brick option is the way you'd like to see it go, certainly, we've prepared to put together a letter for the chairman's signature indicating that, indicating out all the options that you've looked at, that's the way you'd like to go. The only thing I'd like to say is that I need to make sure before final approval takes place that the sign sizes comply with the regulations. So if we need to tweak that a little bit, we need to do that. But I don't think there'd be any difficulty at all putting together the letter that Matt's looking for with regard to that.
Hiram.
Who's it?
Rob Pomeroy, Chairman of the Zoning Commission. I would suggest that since the Design Review Board has a advisory role to the Zoning Commission, they could advise the Zoning Commission that the Chrysler standard product would be unacceptable to the Design Review Board, but that the proposal by Mitchell of an alternative would be acceptable. And that's a recommendation that they could make that kind of motion to the Zoning Commission second.
Sure, absolutely. And also, as the board knows, if you decide that you've seen enough tonight and if there's no other additional signage proposed, you could actually make this into a formal, if you want to do that this evening as well, and speed that along to the next available zoning commission meeting as well, if that would be of any help to that, if you're
Okay.
comfortable with that.
I think it's fine. I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
It's, form ever follows function. It's an automobile agency, and it looks like one. I like the one on the right better, the brick one.
All right, so you want us to make a formal, someone here make a formal motion to
Make a motion.
recommend to the zoning commission option 2?
Well, we have to make a motion to make this a formal application, number 1, right? We have to, huh?
If you would like, yes.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, I move that the informal presentation by Christopher Millard, Phase 0 design of the proposed exterior renovations to Mitchell Auto Mall on the property located at 416 Hop Meadow Street, map F4, block 143, lot 003, zone B2, become an application.
Second. We need a second? Anka will second it. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or against? Okay, motion so approved.
Would you like the motion to?
Yes.
Application by Christopher Millard, Phase 0 design of the proposed exterior renovations to Mitchell Auto Mall on the property located at 416 Hot Meadow Street, map F14, block 143, lot 003, zone B2. Zoning review, the Design Review Board finds that option 2 of the Millennium Arch brick on their drawing, Phase 0 design, dated July 2. Substantially meets the criteria of the community design,
Guidelines.
guidelines of community design, and we recommend approval.
John, do you want to go further and just say that
Say again?
you want to go further and say that the proposed Chrysler is not acceptable or does not meet? I think you should.
Yes, I think we should. In the,
Oh, yeah, we also add that it is recommended that the base of the sign be made of brick that matches the Millennium Arch.
and that option 1 is not acceptable.
And what?
And option 1 is not acceptable.
Yes, option 1 is not acceptable under our guidelines.
Okay. Second?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Any against or opposed? So approved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We have one quick agenda item. Approval of the meeting minutes from June 2nd. Does anybody have any comments?
I move we pass on the minutes.
We'll approve them next time.
Yeah.
We'll move the minutes to the next agenda. Thank you. Motion, meeting adjourned? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.